Good day, everybody, and welcome to today's latest episode on my YouTube video channel. And today we're going to talk about a topic which I think is quite interesting now, which is KLCC versus JBCC versus Singapore, right? National Day weekend was last weekend in Singapore, right? I got a bit tired, had some sore throat, which I'm still recovering right now. Watched a lot of YouTube, a lot of TikTok on videos, both from Singapore and Malaysia, right? And I there were two things that I watched a lot of property agents as well as property influencers on YouTube and TikTok, both from Malaysia and Singapore, right? Talking about various topics relating to JB, right? And one thing common about the Singapore agents and the KL agents is that they are both saying, oh, don't buy JB no good, right? Uh, so of course, if you're a Singapore agent, you sure say JB no good, lah, because you must say Singapore good, ma. If you're a KL agent or KL property influencer, you must also say KL good. You must say JB no good. Everybody must protect their own turf. Understandable, right? Even I pro JB, so I must protect JB, right? So let me protect JB in this video, right? So I'm qualified to talk about this topic because number one, I have lived in all three cities, right? I live in Singapore, right? I spent a lot of time in JB, right? I used to live in JB full time during COVID 2021. Even in 2016 to 2017, actually, I spent more time in Malaysia than in Singapore. I lived in KL for 5 years, 2004 to 2009, before I moved to Singapore. So my family is still there. I have brothers. My parents are still in KL. So I go to the KL fairly often, maybe once or twice a year. Okay, not very often, but I still go, and I know KL very well because I spent in and out of KL for many years. Okay, so yeah, so I consider myself qualified to talk about this topic. Okay, so now there's a discussion that always happens, right? Oh, why stay Singapore better? Why stay KL better? Or why stay JB is better, right? So and KL people, let me start from the KL perspective. So KL people tend to say that, oh, KL infrastructure is better. They got more roads, they got more highways, they got more shopping malls. Quality of life is better, right, in KL because they got a lot more variety, right, in services. They got MRT, they got two proper MRT lines and a number of smaller LRT lines. So public transport in KL by rail, at least, is better than JB, right? I understand, yes, that's true, right? And they tend to compare quality of life to places like Mont Kiara or Desa Park City. Wow, here's very good. Desa Park City is very popular, very nice. Yes, that's true. Desa Park City is very popular, is very nice. The other angle that we'll probably talk about is from property, lah. So like for 800 ringgit per square foot, right? If you go to Mont Kiara, you can probably buy a very nice condo, very well designed, very good quality freehold condo in Mont Kiara for maybe 800 plus per square foot ringgit in KL. Nicer. So the 800 ringgit per square foot condo you buy in Mont Kiara is a lot nicer than 800 ringgit per square foot condo that you buy in JB. And I agree. To be frank, I agree, right? I had discussion with a client recently also, and I agree first. She told me, hey, Mont Kiara condo cheaper and nicer. Now I said, yeah, I get where you're coming from, right? You know, there are a lot of nice condos in KL, which in generally speaking, the condo qualities in KL are higher than JB, right? So yes, that's true. So then they will go on to say that, oh, if I were a ringgit earner Malaysian working in Singapore, once I retire, I will go back to KL to retire, right? Why retire in JB? Or if I am a Singaporean, I should retire in KL. KL is better than JB. Now, all these arguments have one very major flaw, which is basically that KL is just simply too far, right? If to go to KL, the most efficient way to go to KL today is to fly. And you and I both know the flight is maybe only 1 hour, but going to the airport in Singapore, reaching KLIA get to the place you want to go in KL, takes a lot of time because KLIA is not in the city center, it's quite outskirts. So the moment you have to fly for a Singaporean, right, if I'm a Singaporean or I stay in Singapore, right, then I have many choices. I can go and retire in Penang, I can go and retire in Bali, I can go and retire in Bangkok. Heck, I can even go to Vietnam, right? There are so many choices open, right? If I want to retire, right? Even within Asia, I haven't talked about going to other places like Australia and all the other usual suspects, right? So the moment I have to fly, then I have many more options. And KL is not just the only option to go to. So this thinking is a very KL centric thinking. The KL people think that they are the center of the world, right? KL is not the center of the world, right? I'm from KL and I know this, and I want to humble our KL friends that KL is not the center of the world, right? As a Singaporean, Singaporeans have many options to go if they need to fly, right? And I heard from many Singaporeans, they love Penang, they love Bangkok, right? A lot of people are exploring Bali as well because even Thailand, Indonesia today, there are visa options for them. We haven't even talked about going to Japan, right? Japan is also very, what do you call it, foreigner friendly to buy a property, to stay to some extent, right? So, and properties in Japan are very cheap, right? You can argue that quality of life and lifestyle in Japan is a lot better than KL, right? This is also a very fair argument. But the reason why many Singaporeans still choose to buy JB or part retire in JB is because they don't want to divorce their Singapore lifestyle, because in Singapore, that's where their friends are, their family are, their social network is, right? If Singapore was so lousy, they would have left a long, long time ago, right? But they want to go to JB to enjoy the good parts about Malaysia, but they still want to remain connected to Singapore. Many Singaporean retirees also want access to government services in Singapore. They want access to healthcare services in Singapore because they get subsidies as a Singapore citizens. Then the argument will go, oh, those Malaysians working in Singapore, they should go back to KL, right? Then I would again argue differently, right? Because as a Malaysian, right, you work in Singapore for many, many years, you earn Singapore dollar, right? Unless you want to really divorce, don't want Singapore already, right? You don't want to earn Singapore dollar anymore, right? You stay in Singapore for too long, you will develop friends, families, etc. also in Singapore. So you're staying here for a very, very long time, like, 10, 20, 30 years, right? So you're also semi-Singaporean already, right? And if you bring family down to Singapore, or you have family in Singapore, right, then the next best option again, without divorcing your Singapore lifestyle, again, is JB. Or you are a KL native, means you're born from KL, you got family in KL, and then you're okay to go back to KL at some point, right? Buying KL really doesn't have any relevant purpose over here as a retiree or as a Malaysian in Singapore. If I'm from Sabah, Sarawak, right, I'm from Johor, I'm from Malacca, I'm from Perak, I have no reason to buy KL, right, to retire in KL. The other thing that people should take note is that today, recently the Malaysian government released statistics showing that many Malaysians are converting to Singaporeans, right? So for these Malaysians who convert to Singaporeans, right, the most logical option again for them is to buy in JB, right? Because they are already Singaporean, they don't think in the Malaysian context anymore. And what of like other people like me, PRs and other Malaysians who spend a lot more time in Singapore today, right? For them, KL doesn't really have any practical purpose for us, right? JB is the nearest Malaysian touch point. So even many Malaysians who work in Singapore today, they prefer to buy JB because the JB property is something they can use often, because JB property is nearby, can actually use. You buy in KL, you only go back to KL once or twice or 3, 4 times a year, then that property become white elephant you don't really use. So this is the reason why property price in JB already hit 1000 PSF, because in JB, right, we have next to JB, we have 6 million people in Singapore who earn Singapore dollar, right? If you times 3, buying power, that's like 18 million Malaysians kind of buying power, haven't plus the additional 2 million in JB alone. So there's like 20 million Malaysian buying power, right, in JB. This is the reason why property price in JB has gone up a lot faster than KL. KL people say bubble. I say I don't know what bubble, because we are all Sing dollar earner here. Right? This is all well within our affordability, right? You cannot compare the ringgit earner and the Singapore dollar in terms of buying power, So this is why JB property price has gone up so much, higher than KL in some cases. So the question is, Ryan, does it mean that no people from Singapore retire in KL? God. I've even met some Singaporeans who go to KL. They would definitely have some Singaporeans who choose to retire in KL, but their numbers cannot compare to the amount of people who choose to retire in JB. There are way, way more who retire in JB, whether in full or in part. So from the argument against Singapore, right, where we see Singapore property agents or Singapore influencers talk about, hey, cannot buy JB lah, JB property no good, Singapore still better, right? So there are a few arguments. Argument number one is that, hey, RTS is coming, but RTS will not add that much people to the people crossing the border. So today we have anywhere from 300,000-400,000 people crossing the border daily. So they say that realistically or conservatively, the RTS will only increase maybe 50,000-100,000 people only. To me, 50,000-100,000 people is a lot, right? If you look at the number of condos near RTS, 50,000-100,000 people will fill up all these condos, and that also not enough condo in the market today. Okay, 50,000-100,000 people, which is a conservative estimate, is good. So they were saying it's not like the traveling people will double. It won't double. RTS, we know the capacity limitations, right? But it will go up maybe 50,000-100,000 people every day. But that's enough. That's a lot already from that perspective, right? So you cannot underestimate the RTS capacity in a sense, and we are not overestimating, right? Some people think that, oh, because of RTS, the people become 1 million people crossing every day. No, it cannot be 1 million, right? The RTS cannot support that. But the 50,000-100,000 people daily, right, is a lot. It's a very, very big game changer for JB already. Number two is that Singaporeans will say that JB property or Malaysia property, historically, most of them never make money, right? Which is true if you look in the past 10 years, right? Malaysia in general, JB especially so, a lot of condos didn't make money in the last 10 years because we were at the wrong end of the cycle, right? The Malaysian property market peaked around 2013, right? And from then, for a 10-year period, you can say that the property market price in JB, Malaysia, has been very weak, right? And that has been seen reflectively, of course, in JB. So this is the excuse that most people say that why you shouldn't buy property in JB lah. because JB will lose money, because Singapore property prices have made a lot of money in the past 10 years in comparison to JB, which in many cases are negative. So people say that, oh, JB cannot make money. So which I understand where they're coming from. So the thing is to look at that. A lot of people who buy JB today, if you ask me, they are not looking to make money. A lot of buyers today, actually, easily, if you ask my experience, 7 out of 10 buyers are like retiree buyers. They are buying for an own use enjoyment, retirement, future retirement, right, in JB, right? So they don't really expect to make money. All they know is that the properties in Malaysia are generally freehold, right, and they are cheap, right, something they can afford, right, and JB is a place that they go often to enjoy, right, and they may want to enjoy it in the future. They can buy a big house, they can buy a dream house, something they cannot get in Singapore, right, and they enjoy these properties. So the number of investors this time is actually lower, right, which I think is good. It's very healthy to show that there's a actually genuine demand. So buying demand comes from two major sources. Number one is Singapore retirees, right, as I mentioned, because Singapore is an aging nation. Singapore government statistics show that by the year 2030, we will have 900,000 Singaporeans aged 65 and above. Which is another 5 years from now, there'll be 900,000 Singaporeans aged 65 and above. That's a lot of retirees in Singapore. So the buying demand for retirement is high. So I like to tell myself, I serve a lot of retiree buyers. We are buying a silver hair program kind of product, right? We are not selling property per se. We are selling a solution for retirees, right? For right, JB property. And the second source of buyers are actually a lot of Malaysians who work in Singapore, right? Because we must remember these Malaysians who work in Singapore, right? They cannot afford to buy Singapore property unless they convert to be Singaporean, right? Or unless they are extraordinarily very high income in Singapore, right? But most Malaysians who work in Singapore will find it very difficult to buy Singapore property, right? If they remain Malaysian, so many would choose to buy JB instead because they earn Singapore dollar, they can definitely afford, right? Because the last argument that normally comes, Malaysians don't like to buy condo, Malaysians only want to buy landed property. Now, that's true anywhere in the world, right? Even in Singapore, right, or in any country in the world, everybody prefer to buy landed, right? Like, but if you look at KL or Penang, a lot of Malaysians buy condo. Buying condo is not a new concept, right? JB today, we still have landed, but landed prices have also gone up a lot in recent years. Landed in JB today is no longer cheap. The cheap landed are very far away, or those very old landed which are not gated guarded. So increasingly, many people in Malaysia also feel that landed prices are getting out of reach, right? So they are willing to buy condos which are better location, near transport, convenient, right, nearer to town. So this trend is happening in JB now, right? Especially for those Malaysians who work in Singapore who are more used to high-rise living, right? And that's why we see a lot of Malaysian buyers also buying properties or buying condos in JB town. So when they say that, oh, buy JB condo, don't make money, right? I want to say something about there are many ways to make money. You don't have to buy a JB condo to make money. Buying property to make money is just one way to make money, right? If you're good at playing shares, you buy shares. You're good at Bitcoin, you go and buy Bitcoin, right? JB condo is one aspect where you can make money, but if you're not good at it and you're very new to it, I suggest you spend more time to learn before you actually buy a JB condo to invest. And as I said earlier, many buyers who buy JB condo today, actually they are looking at JB sometimes like an insurance policy. I buy, I enjoy the benefits, right? It's freehold. Then if I die, I give to my children, right? They enjoy, they get a freehold property anyway, right? So I don't think too much about whether the property make money, lose money. My children get the property, right? When after I die 20 years later, is a very big bonus for them already, right? They don't think too much in that sense. And the reason why a lot of Singapore property agents or Singapore property influencers tend to think in this mindset, because Singapore comes from a bit capitalistic society, right? Where you buy BTO, BTO must make money, sell BTO, buy private, husband and wife, asset progression, right? Both sides also make money. So we tend to treat property in Singapore as a very aggressive, must make money asset, right? And I mean, this culture, unfortunately, it is here in Singapore, right? And we teach it, to buyers and property owners in Singapore, right? But you must understand, ultimately, many people buy a house for what? A house is a place to stay, right? House is not necessarily a place to make money, right? So like all the retiree buyers that are buying property in JB today, they are not necessarily here to make money, right? They are buying the house to enjoy as a stay, as a roof, right? In a city that they enjoy. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. That was my sharing. I hope you guys enjoyed this sharing today. I'm a property agent in Malaysia. Right, my name is Ryan Khoo. This is my number 81261626. If you feel you have any questions to ask, you can leave it in the comments below, or you can WhatsApp me, and more than happy to have a non-obligatory discussion with you about buying and owning property in JB, right? Or how to retire there if you want to retire there, right? If you do like this content, please like, share, and subscribe. like, share, subscribe with all your friends out there, right? All your sharing and your subscriptions to my channel help us get this channel to more and more people to watch and understand better this topic, which is increasingly popular today, buying property in JB and retirement in JB. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed this video, and bye-bye.